Hello and welcome to Colleague 7 Sprint Review for 19.11.02. This will cover the work undertaken between the 12th of November to the 25th of November. Our sprint goal for this sprint has been to complete the second phase of work relating to allowing for the number of skills against a record to be a mandatory setting. Looking at the high-level items and to explain further, in this sprint we've been able to deliver the mandatory field setting to set a minimum number of skills which needs to be held against a record. I'll give a demo on this shortly. We've resolved an issue when creating documents if the data held within it contained an ampersand among other characters. We've added a new user group permission on the ability to edit email signatures. We've updated the company and contact addresses so that you can now specify the primary address rather than specify where the address is secondary. We've removed unnecessary commas from the address. We've added a list column to the lists area when you're in view all mode. A duplication check is now in place when adding social media URLs to check for duplicates against other records and to advise who, if any, do exist. We've added the contact type filter to the contacts tab on the company. And we've started work on updating the background workings of our candidate selection screen. This is for improvements in performance and is still in progress, so will be carried over to the next sprint. We'll now go for a brief demonstration on the key features from this sprint. Okay, so the first item to go through is the setting that's now in place that allows you to set the minimum number of skills associated to a record. So if I start just by demonstrating within a candidate record or any record that actually has a skills tab, what you have now within the skills area, you've got a total skills count that's top right there, which is counting obviously the number of skills that you've assigned to the record. What you can now do within the admin area under mandatory fields, and again, you can select which entity this is associated to on the basis of, as an example, say candidate. If we go down to skills, which you'll see there, you've got a minimum of skills, and if you highlight over that label, it advises minimum number of skills required against the record. And what we'll say is if we want 3 skills associated to a record as a minimum count. What that then means, for example, of an existing record, if you're going into an existing record that had less than 3 skills then associated to its record, you'll see that the skills tab will highlight in red, and then if you go in there, you'll see that you've got the candidate skills now as an asterisk there. It shows that the skills are 2 and you've got a minimum of 3. It puts the minimum count in the top right hand corner there. So we then have to assign another skill to the record, and then it will obviously back to normal then. But you see that the total skills has got a count there. You've got a minimum of 3, and then you can see you've got a total count of 3. And so if we then tried to remove that skill, you'll get a little alert that just advises that removing the selected skill will reduce the skill count beneath the minimum. What you need to essentially do if you want to remove a skill is assign a replacement skill to it before you can then remove that associated skill, so that you are within the minimum count associated to those skills. But that's in the event of an existing record. If you were creating a new candidate record, as the example being we've used it against candidates, what you'll see is we've obviously input this skills tab there. But you'll see that we have this minimum count of 3 associated to the record. So if I add in if we do to there, test.com, and if I just do 0777, do that. And those are all the mandatory fields from that area. Custom fields wise, should be no mandatories in there. So if I selected save there, what you'll see is that the skills tab highlights there, and again you've got this reading here. It's advising that you've got a total number of skills of 0 and you've got the minimum count of 3, and it's just how you enable retaining that you'll have 3 skills associated to a record. So in terms of existing data, you're going to get this prompt, and in terms of when creating a new record, it actually won't let you create the record until you've assigned 3 skills associated to the record. And then once those 3 are assigned, you've then got essentially the confirmation taken away, or the alert taken away, and you can obviously proceed with actually creating the record. So that's the update we made with regards to mandatory skill count settings. The next point to cover is with regards to the email signature, and specifically the user group permission that's now been set to enable you to decide whether or not a user can edit their email signature. So traditionally, an email signature, when you're using the email form, is copied through into the email form and placed there. And obviously, your email signature as a user is available to you from user settings within the email signature section here. So you've got an email signature that you can set up yourself within that area. However, for clients that want to lock down the email signature, what we have now is a user group permission, and then within the admin area, there is an option now to set the ability to edit an email signature as no access. If I then refresh this candidate, what you'll see is that the email signature on the email form now is essentially locked down. It's basically the email signature is part of a secondary element of the email, and that's essentially read only. You can't actually type into here. So you then end up typing your email, and then when you send the email email signature is obviously joined beneath the email that you've sent. Obviously, and also from a user setting perspective within the email signatures area, you'll then get an alert which advises that you do not have permission to edit your email signature. If you require access, please contact your system administrator. And this is again, this is all read only. You can't edit this. Yeah, essentially what we've done is lock down the ability to edit an email signature. This is kind of step one to a larger piece, which is the email signature template itself, which is being done as part of the next sprint, and that's with a view to there being the ability for there being a centralized email signature, which all users can essentially just utilize with merge codes, as opposed to everyone having each having their own email signatures in place, which of course is still a functionality that we'll enable, but ideally what we're looking for is a centralized email signature that all users can utilize. So this is kind of step one to implementing that as an option. But you can now decide whether or not a user has the ability to edit email signatures. The next point to cover is just some updates that have been made to the company entity. So if I start with just on the contacts tab, what we've added to the contacts tab is a contact type filter. So if you have multiple contacts that have different types associated, for example, invoice contacts, or if you have a main contact filter, for example, what you can do, I mean, when you're in a contact record, if I open up an example contact record, there's a type field there that allows you to specify the type of the record, and based on, and that's a field that you can add lookup values to as well, and just administer as your own list. But essentially, what you can do is obviously just view which contacts you want based on that. The other thing we've done as well is with regards to addresses. So within addresses, previously you would define whether an address is a secondary address, and every other address that wasn't a secondary. So if address wasn't a secondary, then it was deemed a primary, which is kind of the reverse logic to really setting a primary address. So what we've done is resolve that now, so that essentially if you want to set an address as a primary address, there's now a flag, just say set primary, and then that address is now set as a primary. It's as simple as that. We've also got a filter setting, or a setting so that the primary address on refresh of the company will be set at the top. So the primary address will always be the top address at the top of the company. Another thing we've done as well is remove any unnecessary commas. So previously, if any of the address lines were empty, it would put commas against all the address lines. So as an example, if I just put in example address line 1, and I'll leave everything else blank, hit save there, what you can see is it will just have the address line and then comma and then the remainder of the address, as opposed to commas representing all the different address lines that didn't have values associated to them. So there's just a series of updates that we made in relation to the company area. The next point to cover is with regards to the duplication check that's been applied to social media links. So as an example, if I was against the candidate record, if I wanted to do a LinkedIn search, say we'll run a search for LinkedIn profile for David Payne, then there's me. We'll open up my record in LinkedIn, copy that URL, we'll put it here and hit save. What you'll see is that there's a check now that's performed against saving that URL. So it's advising that this URL exists against these records. Do you still want to add it? So essentially it's a duplication check on specifically that profile being added to another record, and it's a good way of seeing whether or not you've got essentially the same candidate. Perhaps there's been a name change of some kind, but associated to that profile also within the system. So you can click on those links and it'll open up a new tab to take you to those records, or obviously you can just hit yes there, and it'll add the social media link as you'd expect, and then that's the social media link applied. So it's a duplication check when you're adding social media links. A few other points to note, one being that you've now got the means to search by skill grade. So if you have a specific skill grade associated with a skill, you can now reference that when you're running this workflow. So you can specify a certain skill and run searches based on a specific skill grade. Also, it's worth noting that we've made it so that the skill search is responsive to double click as well, so you can use double click options within here now as well. Within the contact record under markers lever as well, there's a copy all option. That's another update we've made, so you can just hit that now and it will copy everything associated to it as a quick option for users. Within the back office area, so the new back office area that's available there on the basis of a user group permission, we now have a list payments section. So this is in completion to the payments component. So we've done invoicing and now we have payments. You can generate payments based on a list of established timesheets, charges, placements that are referenced to be payable, and also obviously we have an associated list payments list there. So you've raised the payments from the generate payments area, and then you list the payments here, and then within this area you actually have the option to undo payments if you wish as well. But from there essentially you have the means then to as it stands copy those payments or pass those payments onto Sage. So we have the invoice records being generated, we have payments generated. It is my intention to record a full back office video suite over the course of the coming weeks, but we have a client using back office now in earnest live, so feedback on that is coming through, and we're revising and resolving any elements that are raised. But ultimately we're seeking to have back office as a fully launched component over the course of the next few weeks. So that's an update with regards to back office also. As always, if you have any queries or feedback, please get in touch. I'll be keen to hear from you. Also, for those using Colleague 7, feel free to submit your enhancement requests via the support team or directly to me using the above email address. The next video will be the sprint plan for 19.12.01, and as always that will contain a high-level overview on the items we intend to work on during that sprint. Thanks for watching.